What's up, guys? It's Chris. I am back with another coach's interview. Joining me today is Tom, coach of the San Jose Sharpedos. Say hey, Tom.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, nice and relaxed. And he didn't make the hey, Tom joke. You have to respect the person that passes up the hey, Tom joke.
I believe I'm above that. At least this time. Next time might be a little different.
Yeah, who knows? There's no rules. Next time, anything goes. Um, all right, so San Jose Sharpedos, pretty consistently threatening team in the league. You made playoffs both seasons, right?
Ah, first season I missed it by pretty much the roll. It was Shay and I were neck and neck, and
Yeah.
it was first season was a learning curve for me. I
Yeah.
hadn't had that much experience in terms of competitive battling, and then when Steve asked me, I figured this was my chance to like see how good I really am. And
Yeah.
season one was kind of a mishmash as to how good I could be, and then I learned the format. And I love this format now.
Yeah. It's pretty great. And then, season two, straight to the playoffs. Pretty dominant in your conference along with Joe and John. The three of you guys just really pushed way out ahead of the rest of the people. Um, so based off that, I mean, it's hard to say like, what are you gonna do differently to do better? It's the same talk I had with Joe and his video. How like what do I say? What do you say that you need to do differently? You didn't really do anything wrong. Like you played a great game, in my opinion. How do you feel about that? Like, are you going into the future? Like, did you come off of season two feeling like I need to change things, I need to refocus here, or just I need to hone what I've already got?
Well, in terms of what I really have, I'm content with how I picked and especially how I plan. I don't go into this with very little planning. I spend a few hours because my job is essentially me sitting around staring at nothing, so it gives me a lot of time to think. But in terms of something I have thought about changing is I don't want my opponent's team to get the best of me. I want to look at it and stay calm before and especially during the match. So I feel like there were a few matches last season, especially against namely Gubbs, Nick, and Danza, where the teams themselves had gotten me a little frazzled. And I wasn't able to play my best game. This season I plan on changing that where I don't get so caught up in the team and rather just play my game to the best of my ability.
That's a good strategy. That's I think that's fairly similar to what Gubbs' approach has been. Just like build a good team to play. Like you can kind of go two ways about it. You can either, counter team and plan meticulously and go super hard, or you can just, play your game and really, make them figure out how to beat you as opposed to the other way around.
Right, and I mean, I even last season I was a big believer in like middle ground plays. Like there's the riskiest moves that you can take, thinking they're gonna make this prediction right into this mon that you think they're gonna do, and then and there's like the middle ground play that is still gonna do damage, but if they don't switch, it's not necessarily your worst move, or it's like you put yourself behind the eight ball. You kind of give yourself a middle ground to work with instead of hurting yourself and hurting your momentum in the match.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of merit in that, and I think that's definitely a thing people could value and attribute a bit of your success to. Like I also think that's fairly representative of your draft. I've said it pretty consistently. I think you in the past have drafted a very across the board solid team. Like it's got the threats, it's got the Scizor, the Curon, the things that scare you. You've had the bulk, the things that take hits and don't die. You've had, standard support options with things with a little bit of versatility like Latias. I feel like generally you've had one of the more standardly consistent drafts throughout, the league history.
Well, I try not to be that I guess radical with the mons that I'm picking. Like with this season, we kind of saw that the pool got a little shallower as we got down to those later rounds. Now there are Pokemon I was considering, things like Leafeon and Furfrou and even Drapion. I know Drapion had gotten picked, but like if you just consider those three mons like they're versatile, but were they the best fit? Not necessarily. The way I looked at it was I took everything into consideration, and I looked at my team overall, and the mons that I had chosen, I felt fit my team's weaknesses, but they also gave me a certain presence that allowed me to be offensive, and then to, like I said, to fill the holes that I had from the previous season, like especially my ice and fairy and even electric weakness.
Yeah, I think I like your approach to it. I think it's not always about like pulling out special players that can do niche and stuff like that. It's just a very consistent, thoroughly thought out strategy. So going into the draft, you did have one trade. You got Hitmontop, threw out Ferrothorn. Why did you make that trade? Not judging you or anything like that. Just curious because I don't think I've heard your rationalization for like your draft choices and stuff like that, but I don't remember ever talking to you about the Hitmontop Ferrothorn thing.
Well, my issue with Ferrothorn, and this was my issue with it every single week, is it seems to be a pattern in the GBA that the Pokemon on my opponent's teams can either have a very large fire presence, or especially a very large fighting Pokemon presence, or even just move presence. And my problem is, yes, Ferrothorn is bulky, and yes, it can do things where it doesn't die sometimes, and then it can cripple other Pokemon set up, hazards or T-Wave. But on the same token, when you looked at my team, you saw two glaring quad fire weaknesses, and I feel like if I had brought in both, or one or the other, my opponent was already capitalizing on that weakness. Yes, I had Kieran Black. Yes, I had Latias things that can resist fire, and then Arcanine something who could possibly be immune to fire. But on the same token, I don't want my opponent to always be able to take advantage of my Pokemon having weaknesses to fire. So when I had been looking to trade Ferrothorn, I was considering like, okay, I want something that is versatile and then that can also help me out in the long run. And then when Cooper had said, I'll trade you Hitmontop, or I don't know if I approached him or he approached me, I thought for a while and I was like, all right, it's a fighting type. That granted, yes, it's fairy weakness. I'm losing a fairy resist for a fairy weakness, but I could help that in the draft. But also it gives me a spinner, assuming I don't get Starmie back, because yeah, I lost a Defogger and Mandibuzz, and I still have Latias. But having a spinner would help me in case I want to set up hazards with
Yeah.
Swampert and then not have them, get gotten rid of, and then I can still have the hazards up, but I can get rid of hazards that they try and set up on me. Now, do I have Charizard Y again this season? No, but not having rocks when I like Arcanine and Staraptor is a huge bonus.
Yeah, yeah, because you did pick up Staraptor at the end of last season, so
Yep.
again, a more really good offensive threat to pick up there. Like I said, you've just got the team that has the scary things and then the bulky things and the versatile things. And I think the draft did that. I think you got, what I consider to be probably the best fairy type in the game, Clefable in the first round. That's I don't know how you don't pick that, Like it's very hard to pick other things before Clefable, in my
I
opinion.
mean, I was looking at the draft, and I was surprised to see that something like Entei, or even, I mean, I guess that's the only thing come to mind at the moment. But like seeing that go before Clefable, when I was looking down, I scanned the board, Cooper's big board, a few times, and I was looking, and I'm like, if I pick Starmie again, what is the upside of me picking Starmie? Like, yes, I love using Starmie, but on the same token, I have hit my top as a spinner. In terms of special attackers, I have Latias. Yes, it's faster, but what is the real bonus? Then I saw Clefable, and I was like, that is perfect, because the way I saw it was, okay, fairies, neutrals against fairy, whatever. But what Pokemon takes, special attacks really well? It reduces my fighting weakness, and it's a dragon immunity. So having Latias and Kyurem, and then also having Clefable, really brings down the threat of them bringing a dragon type, like Garchomp, Noivern, Latios. Uh, you get what I mean.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, definitely, like I said, I think it's a great. I think it was surprising that it fell as far as it did, and I think it was a great pickup for you. Grabbing it when you did. It's just a scary fairy presence. How else how do you feel about the rest of the draft? Did you get everything you wanted? Was there anything sniped out from under you? Did you, are there any holes you're looking at it now? And obviously you don't have to say them because you don't want to tell people anything that give you a competitive edge, but just in general, how are you feeling about it? Like,
Well, what's funny is like I've already gotten questions in terms of when I picked ProPass in the second round. Now I have my reasons as to why I picked ProPass. It's both switches. It sets up hazards, and then when I looked at it in terms of resistances, yes, it has its quad weaknesses. On the same token, when you want to look at a ground weakness, I have Staraptor and Latias, things that can take ground that are immune to
yeah,
ground moves. And then when you want to look at its fighting weakness, well, I have Clefable. Like Clefable, whether it's a physical fighting move or a special fighting move, Clefable can take on those fighting hits, and then of course just heal them back up. Now, a lot of people are going to question how good will this really be for 3 years, and that's something that I want to kind of look at myself and be like, hey, I want to see how good I can play this and how I could really incorporate this into my team building. Uh, Now, in terms of things that, like you asked, that had gotten taken away from me, I knew that Starmie wasn't getting out of the second round, and I was perfectly okay with that, or out of the first round, I should say. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I knew Clefable or Starmie, one of the other, was not coming back to me. That was simple to say.
yeah,
Then, in terms of Alakazam, I was perplexed that it made to the third. That Pokemon had made to the third round.
yeah.
Yes,
That was a surprising drop.
Gubs didn't like it on his team, and that's perfectly understandable. But in terms of my team, I love Alakazam. I used it when I was doing my X and Y run through the Battle Maze on because like Sash plus Magic Guard, it's so it's so helpful in terms of late game or just trying to just like knock holes through things. And Alakazam has such a vast move pool that it can learn. You have your grass, fairy, fighting, ghost. Your hidden power values, your psychic attacks, both in the physical, Psyshock and psychic. So Alakazam brings a lot to the table. Like, am I going to run? I have a lot of options when it turns to what I can run with Alakazam in terms of move pool. And then in my Mega Draft, man, I going into the Mega Draft, I was like, all right, I don't have a Grass type because I lost Ferrothorn. Maybe I can get one, or maybe I can just go ahead and look for another type of attacker to to utilize. Well,
Hmm.
then Venusaur falls to me, and I'm like, perfect. Grass type and bulk and potential offensive capability. So it was pretty much the best case scenario.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Mega Venusaur is absolutely a threat. I know people in both leagues, the GBA and the D League, consistently have to. It's a thing you have to plan for it every week. You can't get away with not. And a lot of people have trouble planning for it because it's just got bulk. It's got bulk for days on both sides, and it can still tear people down offensively or just wear them down. Traditionally over time.
Right.
And again, I think it's very symbolic of your team. Like it's versatile, and it's the epitome of versatile. Really, like it's like I
I feel
said,
like
it's
I
it's
feel like
scary offensive, it's scary defensive.
yeah, I feel like in terms of versatility, that's kind of the name of the GBA because you know what your opponent's going to bring. On the same token, they know what you're going to bring. So you can't have certain Pokemon that are like a one trick pony. Like I'm going to use Slacking for example. Like yes, it's incredibly offensive, but it will ever be drafted no because protection is a thing. But it's a one trick pony. Like you can't have something like that and use something like that because your opponent's always going to know what it does. When you have the way, at least the way that I look at the draft, like I want a mon that can do a lot of different things, or I can allow it to work differently than how you might expect. Because I don't play Showdown, so I don't know what standard is in terms of Smogon. So 'cause I like doing mixed tier or GBA battles because I feel like they're more fun and they do allow for a more uh, inclusive type playing style versus just like one singular metagame based play style.
Right. I think that's like I said, you have a grasp of this format, and I think your draft definitely shows that. I think you went at it with a pretty good mindset. You did a really good job, like I said, of keeping your eyes open because a lot of people can tend to get tunnel vision with the draft and planning out what they need, and then they can miss the fact that things like Alakazam have fallen, and they're not there to scoop it up. But you didn't. You kept your head in there, your eyes on the prize, and it seems like you've come out ahead. So that being said, you're feeling good about your team.
Incredibly. I'm looking forward to this season. As a matter of fact, I texted John about 2 days ago, and I asked him like, "Hey, can you rattle off your roster for me?" Because I was just getting a look into his team, just
Yeah,
see exactly what I need to prepare for.
yeah. Um, so okay, going into that, who are you looking forward to playing the most this season?
Well, it's certainly John. I really do love playing John. I feel like last season when we had our second battle, where him and I unanimously agreed that when we prepared and we brought the teams that we had brought that rematch, we knew down to basically five mons, we knew what we were going to bring against each other.
Yeah,
So the game wasn't necessarily a big festive prediction and just like, high tier playing. It was a good, solid battle because we knew the plays that the other person was going to make, and we knew the weaknesses in their team, the weaknesses in our respective teams. So it was a good overall battle. Now I'm looking forward to those type of battles again this year. Now, am I happy he doesn't have Terrakion? Oh, of course. But then, like looking at other people I like to play, I want to get a rematch with Joe because I feel like that battle we had in the playoffs. It was the end of the season. And like I said before, I felt like I had let his team get the best of me. And
yeah,
I want to replay Nick and Gubbs as well. I think they're two very good competitors, and they really understand how the GBA works. And I really do enjoy battles with them, even though the last times I've played them haven't been the best for me. I just think it's a good competitive battle.
yeah. All right. So that being said, who who do you want to play the least? Whether that be because they're bad matchup, they have a scary team, or whatever.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I think Fizzy's team has gotten really, really scary. Like last season, yeah, he was an expansion team, but the moves that he's made in the offseason have been awesome. I
Yeah.
think that his team is really, really impressive and certainly very scary because there's just so many threats that you can't just look at face value and be like, all right, I have it, or I have a grasp on his team. It's oh man, I'm gonna have to really plan hard for that team. And of course, the other team that I'm not necessarily looking forward to is the team that I traded Ferrothorn to because that just gives him something that's really, really bulky that goes right up there along with Zapdos and Suicune and Chansey and Shivers and oh no.
All of the other world of bulk that is the Utah Jasmine, right?
Yeah,
It's a rough thing to get through. It's a team designed to really test your endurance, mentally, and your team's endurance as to how long you can survive.
exactly. I feel like last season, I mean, I had beaten Cooper twice last season, but those matches were certainly something that I had to prepare for mentally because you just don't know how long the match is going to be because of how bulky his team is, and
Yeah,
with just
you have to block off the entire 60 minutes because it could be that.
and, at least in my case, I also have to hope that my internet holds on for 60 minutes, which it did.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the thing. It's a gauntlet, and it's a bunch of people with different interesting play styles. Um, and I think that's pretty cool. So, how you feel about your division? It's you, John, Steve, and A Drive. How you feeling about that?
Well, I haven't seen A Drive's team in totality. I know what he drafted. I know he drafted Latios, he had drafted Noivern, and everything else he drafted. I have and Charizard Y. He has like the pseudo or like the proper Sun team. Like he built a good Sun team versus Kyle's dual other team last year.
Yeah.
Um, looking at I want to play him. I want to see how that Sun team really works. Now I'm curious if he has outside of Latios as a defogger. I'm curious if he has any kind of spinner because rocks are a thing.
He has Cloister.
Okay, okay, all right.
He
So
he
and then
also
Steve.
has he also has Espeon with a magic bounce too.
Okay,
So yeah,
that's wow. Okay, he's
yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
So
He's
that
got
that
some
should be interesting.
options. It's a
So
it's a fairly well thought out team.
I'm looking forward to playing him as an expansion team,
Yeah.
and then Steve. Well, in terms of how Steve has been amped up for the season, I feel like if you lose to Steve, you won't forget. He will never let you forget that you lost to him.
Steve has specifically said he's looking forward to beating you because you have not only beaten him in your house, but you have beaten him in his own house.
And that
Literally.
is that is actually true. I'm I I think that Steve's team is a lot more interesting. There's that word. There's that word that's been flying around the entire draft. Interesting. I like Steve's team, and I'm certainly curious to see how it plays out. I do watch his videos, so I am good at scouting because if he doesn't prepare well, I'll know. I'll know.
Yeah. And you've already pretty much said your piece on John. You're ready for that one.
Mm.
That's your mountain to climb this season to, really show that you're the top team in that division, I think. But again, every team's good or gotten better. There's no one's team that's really taken a drastic dip or anything
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
for
So
sure.
um, that said, I think that pretty much wraps up all the basic stuff we're going to cover. Please, guys, I'll have the link to Tom's channel in the description below. Go subscribe to him. Make sure you are watching it because Tom does a really good job about getting his battles up pretty much every Sunday. If not every Sunday, he
Let,
gets it up as soon as he can afterwards.
Let me make a
So,
caveat about that. If you do subscribe to my channel, no, there hasn't been any uploads since the end of last season. However, I do want to get back into the swing of things, and I will be doing a draft breakdown video on my end. Basically, all the stuff I just said to you, Chris, but by myself, without
yeah.
anyone asking me questions.
That may or may not even be up before this video goes up. I'm not sure. I'm
Exactly.
just doing one of these a day. So, like I said, it's a good time to go in there and get subscribed to Tom so you can see as he does start putting videos back out again. Um, if you enjoyed the video, please leave likes, comments, that stuff like that. If you're rooting for the Sharpedos, let us know. I think they are always a threatening team. Tom is a more than competent and threatening coach, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they play this season. So, thanks for joining me, Tom.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, and we will see you guys later.
Later, guys.